Ever since the revival fiasco from 2017, of which the album was subject to brutal online mockery just based off the initially released tracklist, Eminem after that would proceed to adopt a style of simply releasing his albums out of the blue and impromptu, with no build-up, no announcement, and no promotion whatsoever. Subsequent albums, Kamikaze and Music to Be Murdered By, were released in this manner, with everyone simply waking up to new Eminem music now on streaming platforms. And considering the fact that this happened twice in succession, I personally concluded that this thief in the knife method of release was the route Eminem would be permanently going for his music. And after over 3 years of silence, I believed and was sure that if Eminem was gearing up to release new music anytime soon, it would be in the same way he did the previous two. So I was pretty much just waiting for the day I would open my Twitter or Facebook and suddenly see everyone talking about a new album from Eminem. So color me surprised when some months back, Eminem announced that he would be releasing a new album, and the announcement came with a trailer and subsequently 2 promotional singles. This rollout from Eminem was a surprise, as I was already used to and also expecting the usual overnight releases. And on the 12th of July, Eminem's 12th studio album, The Death of Slim Shady, released. And after listening to the album, it became obvious and clear to me that the change from the usual impromptu releases of his music to a proper album rollout was a sign of the change that Eminem was preparing to undergo and an early indicator of what this new body of work would be about. The Death of Slim Shady is basically a back and forth between Eminem and his iconic unhinged, unfiltered, and maniacal alter ego, Slim Shady, as the savage alter ego that had been dormant and asleep for quite some time raised its blonde head up once again to go on his usual lyrical rampages and let all hell break loose in the world around him. His rampages were highlighted and showcased on the tracks Trouble and Habits, which were essentially disses at modern society and a brutal attack at their fragility, with Shady blatantly throwing out every trigger word and phrase aimed at different communities and different groups of people in his deliberate and conscious attempt to get them aggravated, riled up, and offended. The track Evil also showed Slim Shady basking in the acknowledgement of the fact that he's the way he is, describing himself as rotten to the core and a twisted cerebral, proudly proclaiming his evil and maniacal nature and showing his callous disdain for the world and people around him, getting a sick enjoyment and satisfaction from making the people around him feel insulted and offended. He basically highlighted and made clear on this track that no one was safe from his savagery and cruelty, including his own mother, stating that if he could say such abhorrent things about her, then he could easily do the same for others. During the early stages of this album, Marshall, or Eminem himself, was depicted as being under Slim Shady's captive and control, held hostage by the ruthless maniac who had the rapper tied up, gagged, and bound, proceeding to essentially torture the rapper by making him bear witness to the alter ego's lyrical and verbal rampage on the album, as well as making him watch the subsequent aftermath of his actions on the skit All You Got. On the song Guilty Conscience 2, the alter ego didn't fail to express his disdain for the current Eminem, making it thoroughly clear that he despised the current Eminem, who he believed had changed and become a much tamer and considerate person that now cared about people's feelings and their reactions to his behavior and antics. The alter ego was depicted trying to force the rapper into going back to his old ways and readopting the Shady persona by giving him substances to drink and dyeing his hair the iconic blonde. During this period of conflict between both sides, the feelings shared between both individuals were highlighted to be a mutual one, with Eminem also expressing his disdain for his villainous alter ego, expressing what seemed to be a semblance of regret in creating the monster. He, however, acknowledged the fact that it was this side of him that gave him the strength and ability to build himself up to the level he's at today. He acknowledged that Shady was born out of a necessity for Marshall to be strong in an environment where the odds were stacked against him. However, despite this acknowledgement, Shady's chaotic nature was still a problem that needed fixing, and there needed to be a change in Eminem. Their back and forth would come to a climactic conclusion in the latter half of Guilty Conscience 2, where Eminem was successfully able to turn the tables on the dominant alter ego. Eminem seemed to give an apology to all the people from his past feuds that his villainous alter ego had been victims of, showing what seemed to be genuine remorse for his past actions as this maniacal persona before delivering the coup de grace and putting an end to the 20-year rampage of the maniacal Slim Shady for what seems to be for all eternity. The Death of Slim Shady, in essence, is basically a story about a raging internal conflict between Eminem and Slim Shady. Two sides who for many years were on the same page, but while one wants to remain the maniac he has always been, the other wants to move forward and change himself and his ways. The Death of Slim Shady is a story of Eminem putting a decisive end to the controversial yet iconic alter ego that he has been known for throughout the run of his career spanning over 20 years. Eminem on this album expressed a desire to want to grow out of the Shady persona, using killing him as a metaphorical description of him leaving the alter ego behind and turning over a new leaf. Eminem's desire for change on the album can be up to individual interpretation. However, I personally attribute Eminem's desire for change to his increasing age, as Shady existed and was prominent at a time when Eminem was much younger, wilder, and way more nonchalant about the world and the people around him. Around this time, Eminem was hungry for success, wanting to prove himself and his talent in order to make a better life for himself and his family, and Shady was an out and the way for him to let himself loose as an artist and go all out if he was to make a name for himself. However, Eminem seems to have acquired the wisdom that comes with old age, as he has realized the unhinged, controversial, shady persona is a character he can't keep playing forever, for reasons such as the change in times and also the fact that he's inherently in a much better place in life than when the visceral strength of his alter ego was needed. This might be a bit of a reach or a random comparison, but as an anime fan listening to this album, the story and journey of Eminem on the album felt similar to what characters like Ichigo and Thorfinn went through in their lives, with Ichigo having a maniacal part of himself that wanted for him to become more instinctual and feral in nature, and Thorfinn realizing that a life of battle and senseless violence was pointless and meaningless. Eminem was basically at one point white Ichigo, feral, visceral, and maniacal, but now he's Thorfinn, mature, enlightened, and transformed. Having gone through the story and thematic contents of the album, how does the music itself hold up? Well, I must say it's some of the best Eminem has put out in recent times. Eminem came quite close to outdoing his previous body of work, Music to Be Murdered By, an album that I personally consider to be the best out of all of his albums, post-Relapse. I know, a bit of a hot take. However, Music to Be Murdered By pretty much set the standard of what I wanted from a modern Eminem album, and The Death of Slim Shady also delivered on those prerequisites I had, but not quite surpassing the heights of its predecessor. With a standard length of 15 tracks, excluding skits, the album was a concise, quick, and sweet breeze of entertainment from start to finish, devoid of any unnecessary filler tracks to increase the length and waste time. There was no dilly-dallying and no stalling. Eminem knew what he wanted to do with this album, and he simply got straight to it and got out. The album felt shorter than it actually was, and I love when an album succeeds in being so entertaining, it sounds like you just blitzed through the whole thing. The beat selections and production were incredible across the board. The album was filled with a significant number of impressive sounding tracks that had great production. Eminem's delivery on the album was also fantastic. Amazing performances and an excellent use of Dre's beats. Every beat was utilized properly. Eminem mixed together an elite song-making ability with his usual and ever-impressive flows, lyricism, and wordplay all across the album, proving that Eminem and Dre really are the ideal dynamic duo when it comes to music. Modern Eminem is usually criticized for always being too rippity-rappity. And this is criticism I've also levied against him for a number of songs in the past, as I do believe there are times when fast rap is really not necessary. Fast rap is only impressive to me when it's done at the right time and on the right kind of song. It's why Rap God was successful, because it was appropriate for the sound and style of the song. However, on this album, each track is Eminem genuinely trying to make a great sounding and entertaining song with ample replay value that can be enjoyed even on just a surface level by casuals who have no care for wordplay or lyricism. Renaissance was a straight up fire intro that showcased Eminem channeling his early 2000s shady flow and vocals into a sinister Dre beat that struck me with fear and anticipation of what was to come on the album while listening. Habits was simply a jam of a song that had me bopping my head as Eminem insulted and offended little people. And don't even get me started on the song with JID. Fuel is objectively the best song on the album, period. I literally started losing my mind when I saw JID featured on an Eminem track, and boy, did these two titans of the craft freaking deliver. I am probably responsible for 10% of the amount of streams the song currently has. No joke. Head Honcho was also another outstanding track that showed Eminem adopting a more trap-adjacent sound and style. A very energetic track that will be very appropriate for the loudspeakers. Besides the hard-hitting tracks, there were also some somber and emotional songs that really highlighted Eminem's change from his shady persona. Eminem has always dedicated portions of his albums to his daughter Hailey Jade, and the song Temporary was that portion that served as something of a farewell letter to her, detailing and reminiscing over the good times they had together and apologizing for the times he wasn't good enough for her. Although filled with mostly great tracks, not every song on the album was all great, as there were quite a few misses for me. Upon a full consumption of the entire album, Houdini stands as one of the least impressive tracks on the album. Not a bad song by any means, as it does have its own enjoyment factor as being a really catchy and playful sounding track that highlighted the wacky and goofy side of Eminem's shady persona as he heralded back to one of his most iconic songs from his earliest days. The track simply suffers from being an overall average sounding, safe, and basic Eminem track compared to the others which were more unique, fresh, and daring with their sound. Brand New Dance was probably easily the worst song on the album for me. It had a weird, scraggly, and rough sound that I just couldn't get by. Not a very good homage to its iconic predecessors at all. Road Rage would have been an all-round great song if I didn't have that frankly annoying and irritating hook. In conclusion, the album also delivered in being an entertaining body of work, bragging of many songs with ample replay value as simply great sounding tracks. The album wasn't strenuous to listen to, and it has become one of Eminem's best sounding albums with fantastic production and delivery all across the board. Now, let's talk about the features and review their performances. The featured artists were also really great, with JID obviously being the outstanding feature of the bunch. Seeing his name as a feature on a track had me anticipating the moment Fuel would start playing, and obviously JID didn't disappoint with his performance at all. It's usually commonplace that Eminem outdoes his features on songs. However, that wasn't the case at all with Fuel. JID was easily the shining star of the song, effortlessly delivering a masterful verse that further showcased how much of an elite level craftsman he is. JID was an unexpected but fantastic addition to the album, and it was great to see Eminem acknowledge his skill and talent. Eminem would also go as far as the Philippines to enlist the help of an Easy Meal for the track Head Honcho. Easy Meal, although a name I'm not familiar with, also had a fantastic performance on the track, rapping in both English and Tagalog as he held his own alongside Eminem. His verse was genuinely very impressive and just might have geared me to check out his own work. A fantastic addition to the album as well. White Gold was a recurring feature that we're all familiar with, and as usual, he didn't fail to deliver some spectacular hooks that really made the songs he was on. I don't know a whole lot about White Gold, but from what I've heard across all his collaborations with Eminem, he seems to be a genius at making fantastic hooks. His hook on Zeus made the whole song extremely memorable, and now he pretty much carried the song Bad Ones and delivered an addictively catchy hook that remains stuck in your head even after you've stopped listening. Fantastic talent, fantastic performance, and vocal prowess. Big Sean and Baby Tron were also great additions, and they had solid contributions to the song Tobe, which was one of the standout and also impressive songs of the album. My only little gripe about the features would be that there wasn't a stronger roster of features. The features were probably what I was looking forward to the most on this album, as I vividly recall being mind blown by the amount of diverse features Music to Be Murdered By had, ranging from Black Thought to Young M.A. to Juice WRLD to Anderson .Paak. I was hoping Eminem would once again come through with an unexpected roster of diverse features just like that. And while JID definitely was an unexpected name that surprised me, it was the only one, and I was a bit bummed by that. Not particularly a major criticism, just a small personal nitpick. A small criticism about the features though would be that Eminem seems to have a thing for Skylar Grey. Not romantically, I might add, as she has been a constant appearance on a lot of his recent albums. Make no mistake, I have no issue with her. I just would have taken someone else over Skylar Grey again for like the 100th time. Eminem seems to have made Skylar Grey his default / go-to female voice whenever he needs one. And that kind of sucks, as there are also other talented female artists he could utilize. Again, no issue with Skylar Grey. I just really would love to hear someone new and fresh for once. I'm a big Kali Uchis fan, so I would happily take her and Eminem on a song. Overall, the features were phenomenal. Everyone delivered immensely on their individual tracks and left their impact on the listening experience. Mostly outstanding performances all across the board that greatly elevated the songs they were on to significantly better heights. Except the guy that made the Road Rage hook. He sucked and made the song less appealing to listen to for me. So, in conclusion, what are my overall thoughts on the album? Well, I must say it's a pretty good installment from Eminem. It was an album that overall did a lot right with its execution, and listening to it, I could tell a significant amount of effort was put into its making. It already gets massive points from me for its standard length as a straight to the point 15-track album that was a breeze to get through. I am an avid despiser of long albums that stretch over 20 tracks, as I genuinely believe that the vast majority of them tend to be just filler, padding, and preamble. So I respect when an artist gets the job done on an album without wasting any time, while also being thoroughly entertaining. And that was what this album was for me, an entertaining vibe all through, with a consistent stream of great music, where the misses weren't even really misses. They were just not up to the level of the peaks of the album. And the peaks of the album would be songs like Habits, Evil, Fuel, Guilty Conscience 2, Head Honcho, and Bad Ones. While the great but not peak songs would be songs like Antichrist, Road Rage, Tobe, and Somebody Save Me. Really, the only song I'd say I genuinely disliked was Brand New Dance. I really didn't like the sound of the beat. It sounded like a fly in my ear, and Houdini was just alright. Essentially, Eminem, for the most part, pretty much succeeded in crafting together another impressive installment to his modern lineup of albums. However, I think I still hold Music to Be Murdered By at a much higher regard, simply because Music to Be Murdered By sides A and B really came together to form a modern Eminem masterpiece that the Death of Slim Shady didn't come close to reaching. However, that's no slight to the strength of the Death of Slim Shady. The production was excellent all across the board. There were a lot of great songs with ample replay value. The story and thematic contents of the album surrounding the last hurrah and subsequent death of Slim Shady was very impactful and engaging. The featured artists were excellent, and the delivery and execution was all in all solid. Eminem most certainly cooked with this one, albeit not to perfection. And in conclusion, I'd say this was a mostly successful album that gets a strong 8/10 rating from me. I'd say this was album of the year, but Cardi has yet to release 2024 music, so sorry that award is unfortunately not yours. Thank you very much for taking the time to listen to my review on the album. If you made it all the way to the end of the video, kindly let me know your own thoughts and opinions on the album as well by leaving them down in the comment section below. And while you're there, you can also encourage me to make more videos like this by leaving a like and subscribing to the channel. Thank you very much. I appreciate you and have a great day.